In the year 2048, Earth was grappling with the dire consequences of overpopulation and dwindling resources. To address this crisis, the government initiated a groundbreaking project that involved genetically modifying a select group of 14 individuals. These individuals were chosen to embark on a pioneering mission to Saturn's moon, Titan, with the goal of establishing a new civilization. Alongside them, their families were provided with advanced and luxurious homes in a futuristic neighborhood to support their journey. Among the chosen pioneers was Rick, a former pilot with a heroic past, which included surviving a harrowing ordeal in the Syrian desert. His wife, Abigail, a skilled doctor, and their young son, Lucas, also joined the mission. Their decision was motivated by a shared aspiration for a better future, although Abigail couldn't help but worry about Rick's well-being in the face of the unknown. Dr. Collingwood, the program's leader, offered reassurance that Rick would receive adequate medical care if needed. Once settled into their new homes, the volunteers and their families had their first meeting with Dr. Collingwood. He emphasized the dire state of Earth and highlighted Titan as the only celestial body in our solar system with a viable atmosphere and an ancient ecosystem. However, Titan presented its own challenges, including methane rain, extreme temperatures, and an unbreathable nitrogen-rich atmosphere. Instead of terraforming, the program relied on genetic modification to enable humans to adapt to Titan's unique environment. Doubts arose among the volunteers about the success of the genetic treatment, with concerns about potential body rejection. Collingwood admitted that while clinical trials showed promise, there were no guarantees of survival. Rick, drawing from his past experiences, silenced the doubter, expressing confidence in the resilience of those selected for the mission. As weeks passed, the volunteers formed strong bonds within their close-knit community, engaging in social activities like dinner parties and barbecues. Conversations sometimes revolved around their fears regarding the possibility of returning to Earth after their agreed-upon 2-year stay on Titan. A memorable barbecue marked the last night of alcohol consumption. Abigail, having indulged too much, felt dizzy and was assisted upstairs by Rick. However, it quickly became apparent that Rick was the one in distress, experiencing severe coughing and difficulty breathing. Abigail nursed him through the night, deeply concerned about his high fever and labored breathing. Meanwhile, Dr. Collingwood closely monitored the progress of the volunteers' modified DNA samples, signaling the time for a significant test. The group was challenged to remain underwater without oxygen tanks. While most struggled, Rick and Tally displayed remarkable endurance, with Rick even exhibiting dolphin-like grace. He later shared his newfound aquatic skills with Lucas. Days later, the volunteers underwent their first surgery, causing anxiety among their spouses. Abigail consoled one of the wives, Rayenne, emphasizing that the sacrifices made by their partners were for the greater good of humanity and the future of their children. Despite Rick emerging from the surgery in excellent health, Abigail couldn't shake her worries about potential side effects mentioned in the program's manual. In the midst of uncertainty, one late night, Abigail found Rick in the kitchen, tending to his overheated skin with ice. Worried but determined to maintain their spirits, Rick challenged Abigail to a playful game, strengthening their bond as they faced the unknown together. As Abigail and Rick continued their participation in the program on Titan, they found themselves in a series of challenging experiments and experiences. One day, they both reached into a bucket, but Abigail had to withdraw her hands due to the intense cold, while Rick demonstrated his immunity to the cold, hinting at the changes happening to their bodies. Rick expressed regret over his inability to save Earth, a sentiment shared by many of the volunteers. Their experiments included running with masks replicating Titan's atmosphere and swimming in frigid waters for extended periods. Some participants struggled and had to leave for the day, but Tally displayed exceptional determination, even enduring the harsh cold. Rick, in an effort to help her, taught her underwater meditation. However, a concerning turn of events occurred when, after a day of testing, one of the women suffered a seizure and began vomiting blood. Despite the doctor's efforts, they couldn't save her, marking the group's first tragic loss. The volunteers gathered to discuss the incident, with some expressing concerns about their own mortality. Despite the risks, they decided to have a drink to cope with the emotional turmoil. Tensions and physical changes among the volunteers became more apparent. Abigail observed that their veins occasionally turned black, a troubling sign of something amiss. The situation escalated when Zane had a breakdown and attacked his wife, Rayenne. The other men intervened to subdue Zane, while Abigail comforted Rayenne. A new development came when Freya arrived to provide additional medication to prevent the issues that had affected the deceased woman and Zane. Abigail noticed that some of the doses seemed unusually high, raising her suspicions. She requested a discussion with Collingwood, but he was unavailable. As Rick's health deteriorated, Abigail discreetly collected a blood sample and finally discovered hidden cameras throughout their house, realizing that they were constantly monitored. Rick's skin began to peel, and Abigail couldn't ignore the worsening state of his health. The volunteers underwent a major procedure to give them cat-like eyes for improved night vision, but complications arose for Rick, leading to excruciating pain and bleeding from his eyes. Abigail confronted Collingwood, questioning the procedures and revealing her knowledge of the hidden cameras. Collingwood explained the Pentagon's mandate for the cameras and assured Abigail that Rick's temporary blindness was part of the process. Abigail, with a heavy heart and lingering suspicions, returned home to pack clothes for Rick. However, she heard sirens and witnessed a horrifying sight as Zane, now mutated, hurled Rayenne through a window, taking her life. The situation on Titan grew increasingly dire, leaving Abigail with more questions than answers about the true nature of the program and the fate of her husband and the other volunteers. As chaos erupts in the neighborhood, soldiers forcefully enter and open fire on Zane, resulting in his tragic demise. Back at the base, Abigail, who is overseeing Rick's condition, becomes aware of the arrival of additional soldiers. Seizing this moment of distraction, she takes Rick's access card and embarks on a covert investigation, maneuvering through security measures with precision. Inside Collingwood's office, Abigail stumbles upon a cache of documents that reveal a shocking revelation. The volunteers are part of a groundbreaking experiment that intertwines their DNA with that of animals, aiming to propel them toward an evolutionary advancement dubbed Homo Titanians. Simultaneously, Collingwood engages in a high-stakes meeting with Colonel Solano and NASA representatives. NASA pushes to terminate the program, branding it as "Improven Science," as the volunteers display increasingly aggressive behavior, reminiscent of infamous historical experiments. Colonel Solano seeks to expel the experiment from his jurisdiction, but Collingwood and his advisor assert that ultimate authority rests with the Ministers of Defense. Following the meeting, Freya attempts to persuade Collingwood to halt the experiment, but her efforts are futile. When Rick is sent home with Collingwood, they explain that his vision will fully recover within 24 hours, attributing the initial setback to a miscalculation regarding heightened senses. However, a subsequent surgical procedure could rectify the situation. Abigail finally confronts Collingwood, demanding the unvarnished truth. Reluctantly, Collingwood confesses to the injection of animal DNA into the volunteers, acknowledging the inherent risks. He cannot guarantee the experiment's success, but Rick's survival hinges on his participation in the new procedure, a revelation that deeply troubles Abigail. A day later, Rick removes his bandages, confirming the restoration of his vision and shaving his head to conceal bald spots. He also discovers his newfound ability to see in the dark with remarkable clarity, prompting him to reach out to Collingwood to express his willingness to undergo the procedure. All the volunteers, including Rick and Tally, undergo the surgery. Unfortunately, numerous complications arise, resulting in the demise of most of them. Only Rick and Tally emerge alive and in good health, but their transformation is profound. In the subsequent days, Andrew, Abigail, and Lucas visit Rick and Tally, only to be shocked by their transformation into enigmatic beings. They communicate exclusively through tactile contact and a low-frequency mode imperceptible to human ears. Rick reaches out to Abigail through a glass barrier, evoking tears, and Collingwood entrusts her with Rick's wedding ring. Rick and Tally grapple with the challenges of adapting to their altered forms while they await their departure for Titan. Rick's attempts to wear human attire result in an accidental physical encounter with Abigail, fueling her fear of his touch. Rick retreats to the pool, where he feels more at ease than in the house. One fateful night, Abigail stumbles upon Tally, whose hand is stained with blood, causing her alarm. Rick, however, appears unperturbed by this and communicates with Tally through peculiar tentacles extending from their fingers. Amidst this unsettling encounter, the military descends upon the neighborhood, discovering Andrew's lifeless body. Soldiers approach Abigail's house, prompting her to seek refuge upstairs with Lucas. They deploy tranquilizer darts to subdue Tally, a task that proves challenging due to her altered physiology. The situation has reached a critical point, leaving Abigail and her family in a state of uncertainty and fear. However, as they draw nearer, Tally surprises them by revealing her wakefulness and utilizing her tentacles to dispatch one of their comrades. In response, the remaining soldiers swiftly open fire, attempting to eliminate her. Subsequently, the soldiers turn their attention to Rick, but he easily incapacitates them with his newfound strength. Rick endeavors to submerge the last soldier in the pool, but Abigail, alerted by the commotion, intervenes to halt his actions. Regrettably, it's too late, and upon realizing the gravity of his actions, Rick flees. Colonel Solano orders his entire team to commence the search for Rick, disregarding Collingwood's plea not to harm him due to his valuable research. Abigail and Lucas are taken to a secure base for their safety, but Abigail departs upon discovering Rick's whereabouts. After ensuring she isn't being pursued, Abigail rushes to their secret meeting place, where she finds Rick. In a gesture of fearlessness, Abigail extends her hand to demonstrate her lack of fear, and as Rick's tentacles grasp her wrist, she kisses him. In that precise moment, Army helicopters locate them and render them unconscious. Abigail awakens later at the base with Collingwood at her side, who explains that they had to take extreme measures for her well-being. The Pentagon is preparing to shut down the program, which necessitates an immediate transfer of Rick to Titan because Tally's actions have demonstrated that Earth's atmosphere is detrimental to their new bodies, either causing madness or death. However, they cannot compel Rick to go, as that might also prove fatal, so Abigail must persuade him. Subsequently, Abigail is taken to visit Rick, who is confined within a glass enclosure. Collingwood urges Abigail to administer a dose of quetiapine, a chemical lobotomy that would erase all of Rick's memories. Abigail is reluctant, but Collingwood insists it's the only way to convince him to leave. A soldier hands her a quetiapine injection from a drawer, which Abigail pretends to drop to make him pick it up. Then, she enters the enclosure, shares a meaningful look with Rick, and administers the injection, rendering him unconscious. Upon exiting, Abigail asks Freya to accompany her while a soldier approaches Rick to prepare him for the journey. However, Rick is feigning unconsciousness and swiftly dispatches the soldier. It is then that Collingwood realizes Abigail had switched the quetiapine with saline when the soldier wasn't looking. The soldiers open fire, but Rick evades them and takes cover in darkened chambers, utilizing his advantageous visibility. Abigail proceeds to retrieve Lucas, and Freya guides them to an alternate exit, where they reunite with a gravely injured Rick. Lucas and Abigail embrace him once more to demonstrate their lack of fear, while Freya searches for medical supplies. Suddenly, all the soldiers converge on the scene. Collingwood warns the women to leave or face the soldiers' gunfire, but Abigail stands her ground. Enraged, Collingwood orders the soldiers to open fire, but Solano intervenes, refusing to shoot two unarmed women and an innocent child. He points his own weapon at Collingwood, and the other soldiers follow suit. Collingwood is arrested, and Abigail rushes to Rick's side, her embrace reinforcing his most cherished memories. Sometime later, Abigail, together with Freya, embarks on the Titan II project as researchers, employing more ethical methodologies to safeguard the world. Meanwhile, Rick is sent to Titan, where he unveils his new body, complete with wings that enable him to soar through his newfound home.